Hello, everyone. If you're seeing this, it's too late. No, I'm just kidding. If you're seeing this, this is because I went ahead and put this for our review day since I will be proctoring the PSAT. Okay. So I went ahead and included some of the questions from the assignment that I went ahead and gave you guys from the unit 4 quiz. I'm sorry, exam, which is on Friday. So these right here, these 4 questions have actually been covered in yesterday's lesson, which was part 1. So if you would want to call this part 2, go for it. So this stuff right here, where we're talking about conversions, this was actually done in class. And similarly, when they ask you about the quadrant, it's ideally the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and focus on different types of questions. So our week in a class still remains the same. Unfortunately, I'm not with you guys. But yesterday, which is today, these were due. These assignments were due on your notebook. Okay. The exam is on Friday. It's about unit 4. So make sure you attend. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and begin. So we have this question right here, and it's telling us that we want to go ahead and find out what is the theta. Let's go ahead and plot this point and find our sine, cosine, and tangent given this point. So go ahead and pause the video and graph this point. Okay, so hopefully you were able to see that the coordinate -2 and 3, that is going to be in what quadrant? Hopefully you're able to saw that this right here is 2 to the left, right? The -2, 2 to the left, and 3 up. So we have this point right here that we can go ahead and call -2 and 3. So this right here is 3 up. So from here, we can go ahead and sketch our triangle. So keep in mind, guys, this right here looks like the trig bow tie that I was talking about. And if you're unfamiliar with what I was talking about, it looks like a little bow tie where all the triangles go ahead and meet. The adjacent side, the x-axis, and the height comes off the x-axis. So your right angle is right here. Okay. Alrighty. So from what we know, is there an angle that gives us 3 in length? Well, no, right? Because both of these sides are bigger than 1, so therefore they don't exist in our unit circle. However, that's not going to stop us. We can still find sine, cosine, and tangent given these 2 conditions. -2 on my adjacent side, and my opposite is 3. My hypotenuse is unknown, but I can go ahead and do the Pythagorean theorem, which says -2 squared plus 3 squared equals c squared. So go ahead and pause the video, tell me what c is. So we have 4 plus 9 equals c squared. This is 13 equals c squared. So c is equal to the square root of 13. Square root of 13. Okay. From here, we should be okay to finding our values. So what would be the values for sine of theta given this triangle? Hopefully that was not that bad. This is our SO, which is opposite over hypotenuse, or my opposite would be a 3. My hypotenuse is square root of 13. Keep in mind, you cannot have square roots in the denominator. So we're going to go ahead and multiply by the square root of 13 on both sides to rationalize. So we have 3 square root of 13 divided by 13 as my sine of theta. Make sure you rationalize, guys. This is something you learned in Algebra 2, and I also covered it here in class. Okay, the next one that I want you to go ahead and do is cosine of theta. So go ahead and do that one. So we have -2, right? My adjacent side, which is -2, divided by my hypotenuse, which is square root of 13. Okay, keep in mind that that negative came along with my adjacent side. From here, what we're going to go ahead and do is rationalize one more time, because we cannot have that square root of 13 in the denominator, or any square roots for that matter, and we get the following. Okay, last but not least, we have tangent of theta. Tangent is what proportion? Okay, it's going to be opposite over adjacent. So we have the opposite side is 3, and my adjacent side is -2. So 3, -2. Okay. Ideally, we can continue to find the other three reciprocals from these three trig functions, but as of right now, this is the main idea. Okay. For the next part, we're going to go ahead and find the area of a sector, given that our theta is 30 degrees and our radius is 10 inches. Okay. So go ahead and pause the video and find me the area of this sector. Okay. The equations for this right here for the area is equal to 1/2 the radius squared times theta. The only restriction that we have is that 30 degrees must be converted to a radian. Okay. So go ahead and convert 30 degrees to a radian. That means that we're going to get our 30 degrees and we're going to multiply by pi over 180 degrees. So go ahead and give that a try. So we have that 30 pi over 180. That will go ahead and reduce to pi over 6. This right here is my theta in radians. So all I have to do now is substitute. So 1/2, my radius is 10 squared, and my theta is pi over 6. So what solution do we have for this? Hopefully you saw this. 1/2 times 100 times pi over 6. Okay, from here we can go ahead and simplify. 100 divided by 2 is 50 pi over 6 as my area. Keep in mind the units are going to be squared, so inches squared. So 50 pi over 6 inches squared is my area. Okay, this was also took more in depth with our in our notes. So if you are struggling with this one, go ahead and refer back to your notes. Okay, the last example that I'm going to go ahead and talk about, and I keep in mind these are from our review, is this one right here. Tangent of theta is square root of 3 over 3. So we want to know, first of all, what angle gives us this, and secondly, what are the points, what are the x's and y's that create this square root of 3 over 3. So a lot's going on, but the first thing that I want you to know is what is the proportion of tangent. Okay, so we know that it is opposite over adjacent, but I want you to go ahead and think about that. Is that an x, y? What, in terms of x's and y's, what would be the proportion? Hopefully you're able to see that this y over x. Okay, so this right here, we're only talking about stuff in quadrant 1. So let me go ahead and draw my quadrant 1 nice and big. Okay, so I have something like this, right? And my quadrant 1 is going to be all of these points right here that I'm going to go ahead and check. Okay, so I have the first point. Keep in mind right here, this comes from our 30 degrees. Then the next one that we have is from our 45. And then another one that we have is from our 60. Okay, so all of these give us points. Keep in mind the easiest one that we should know by now is the 45s. That is the square root of 2 over 2. Square root of 2 over 2 for both sine and cosine. Okay. Now, in order to find these other ones, these points right here, we need to find our x's and y's. Keep in mind, our x's should remind you of what? Cosine or sine? Cosine, right? And our y's should remind us of sines. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and evaluate that. Keep in mind, you will be using your 30, 60, 90 triangle. So this one's going to take a little bit of work. Unless you have the unit circle memorized, we're going to go ahead and evaluate cosine of 30. So draw yourself a little triangle. 30 is right here. My opposite of 30 is 1. And we have square root of 3 and the 2. So if I do cosine of 30, this would be the proportion of square root of 3 over 2. And if I was to do the sine of 30, right, the sine of 30, that would be the 1/2. So that's how I was able to get these coordinates. My x is square root of 3 over 2, and my y is 1/2. Ideally, I can do the same thing for my 60. So this is 60, this is 60. So square root of 3 is the side that is projected by the angle of 60. And we have that our hypotenuse is still 2. And my 30 gives me the 1. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and find now cosine of 60, which is the adjacent, which is 1, over my hypotenuse. For my sine of 60, that is the opposite, is square root of 3 over 2. So these are my coordinates right over here. Okay, so it looks like we did a lot of work already, but I want you to know that this is just the beginning, because now we want to know tangent. We know what our x's are, which is cosine, and we know what our y's are. Those are sines. Now we need to go ahead and find a way to divide my y's over my x's to go ahead and give me square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give myself more space by erasing this little work. Hopefully in your paper you have more space. Okay, so go ahead and try the first one to start with 30 degrees. Let's see if we get lucky. And in 30 degrees, I'm going to go ahead and set my y values, right? I'm going to go ahead and use these ones right here. I'm going to go ahead and set my y values, which is 1/2. And I'm going to divide it by my x values, which are square root of 3 over 2. Okay, keep in mind, when you divide fractions, that is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So it's going to give me 1/2 times the reciprocal, which is now going to be the numerator on top and the denominator in the bottom. The denominator goes on top and the numerator goes to the bottom. So something like this. I can go ahead and see that my 2's, I have a 2 on top and a 2 on the bottom. So now I have 1 over the square root of 3. Keep in mind, I shouldn't have a square root in the bottom. I should only, I should be able to rationalize here. So this right here, we'll go ahead and multiply by square root of 3, square root of 3, whoops. So that gives me square root of 3 over the square root of 9, which is 3. So fun fact, this is what we are looking for. 30. The 30 degrees would be what we're looking for. Or the coordinates would be these right here. Okay. Now, for funsies, I'm going to go ahead and try it with my 60 degrees just to show you that it would not be the same. So let's go ahead and try it for 60 degrees. My y value is square root of 3 divided by 2. And my x values, right, because I'm doing tangent, y over x is 1/2. Okay, so keep in mind you're still dividing fractions, which is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So I went ahead and got them and flipped them. So the same scenario, the 2 goes on top and the 2 in the bottom are equal to 1. And I'm left with square root of 3 over 1, which is just square root of 3. Okay. So this is huge. We went ahead and covered how to find the angles, how to find their x and y coordinates given that angle by using sine and cosine. And then we went ahead and found tangent. Okay. Those are the 3 examples from the review that I'm going to go ahead and talk about. Keep in mind, this is due on Friday before class. So the deadline for this would be 9 a.m. Okay, because our exam is at 9:30 on Friday. Okay, so I'll go ahead and make sure that this gets to you while we work, and please let me know when you finished it so I can go ahead and give you the appropriate score. All right, guys. As always, thank you, and until next time, bye.